What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 different press releases and how you guys can learn the names and the technique behind each one of those press releases. So these are 5 different releases we have not covered, and mainly I just want you guys to understand what each one is called, why they are called that, in the right situation to use it. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it gives you some value. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to train with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 5 more states. We've already been to 6 states across the country, but we're coming out to 5 more. Next up on our tour is going to be Chicago, Illinois this weekend. Then we're coming out to Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to one of those cities or would like to travel out with us, it's 2 days of training, fellas, 4 hours each day, and we are limiting spots, only 10 to 12 kids per position group, per age group. So hope this is going to help you guys out. Hope you're interested in it. Check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have some of our YouTube community out to one of our camps. Let's get started. So first release is going to be called a foot fire release. So what is a foot fire release? I'm sure some of you, a lot of you have heard that, but the foot fire is pretty much a way of attacking a DB's leverage with some speed. So what is attacking a DB's leverage? A DB is lined up. What leverage would this DB be in right here? He would be inside leverage, right? Wherever he is shaded, that qualifies him as his leverage. So he's lined up inside shade, so he's inside leverage. So if I'm running a route, Garrett Wilson's going to be running a goal line fade. He's going to want to attack the leverage of the DB, try to move him inside, move him to his leverage so he has more space to work outside. Would be no different if he was running an out, a corner, a quick out, whatever it is. So we got to attack his leverage. But the foot fire is how we do it. So a lot of times guys will hesitate. Let's play this full speed first, then we'll break it down. So he does a foot fire release, gives a jab inside, and you see what that does to that DB. Creates all kinds of separation. But they call it a foot fire for this. It's like your feet are on fire. You're moving your feet fast, you're chattering your feet, chattering your hands. So it's a form of kind of putting this DB on alert, trying to get a quicker reaction out of him maybe, but trying to force a reaction out of him, I guess you could say. Like get a quicker reaction, but also force a reaction. So when I give that jab inside, it looks more like we're just coming off of the foot fire and trying to run and cross his face. Now, a lot of the times when people say attack his leverage, or the other one is square him up, which means the same thing. Square him up means attacking him and like get to the point where he's in front of you, like directly in front of you. That's called squaring him up. And so a lot of people will do this like hesitation move, which isn't wrong, and we're gonna get to that later, but where they'll like hop with the front foot, kind of drag their back foot behind and slow the tempo down. This is just a faster way of doing it, and they call it a foot fire release. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we'll get to the next release. Great job selling that move inside, and a great jab inside as well. So next release you're going to talk about is called a dive release, D-I-V-E. Dive release. So a dive release is something you would use to try to get it. It's for an outside release always. So if you're running I like it on a 10-yard out, a comeback, and maybe a 5-yard out. Those are my 3 favorite routes to use the dive on. But in theory, you could use it on a fade. You could use it on a corner. You could use it on a stop route. There are a lot of routes you could use it on, but it's for an outside release. I like it personally when a DB is in head-up coverage, or maybe a little bit shaded outside, because it's a way of like maybe attacking his inside shoulder. Not the biggest fan of when he's outside shade using it. I like it when he's head up. So a dive is pretty much exactly how it sounds. You are diving to the inside. So it is 2 to 3 hard steps on a 45-degree angle to get this DB to flip his hips and bite on like a drag. Okay, so let's play at full speed. So he dives inside, gets the DB to open up the gate, and you see he's able to keep that space to the outside, keep timing with the quarterback, and break this thing right off. So he comes off of here. A dive, I say it's 2 to 3 steps, because this like first step, you can kind of see it a little bit behind this coach here. You see how he takes that little prep step with the front foot? It's almost like a false step. Some guys, what they like to do is they like to take a full-blown like they like to take almost like a split release, if you will, where you kind of come to balance and then they step with that right foot first. It's a little bit more comfortable. Some guys like to go just 2 steps right into this. But again, what he does, he takes a little prep step and then he goes left, then right, and he breaks this thing off on the second step. Now, the key that makes this thing work is you have to commit to it. A lot of wide receivers will do this type of release, and they'll take choppy steps. They won't actually run, but when you take 2 hard steps, commit the hips, commit the shoulders, and actually you're running in full stride, that DB has no choice but to honor the drag, because it's still man coverage, whether he's head up or whether he's outside shade. It is, and again, outside shade could mean it's covered too sometimes where it's a zone, and maybe this wouldn't be the best case scenario. But if he's head up, it's still man, and he's watching your hips. He does not want to get beat. Plain and simple, no DB wants to get beat man coverage, right? So if we could threaten him with that drag, which is a very, very good route to run offensive like scheme wise against man coverage and we fully commit to it, he has to honor it. He has to move if we are running fast, if we are gaining ground, and if I commit my upper body, because that's where he's watching. He's watching my hips, so I got to make sure that I commit my hips. So that is a dive release, fellas. It is something that you could use on an outside release when you have a head up DB who's in press, or like maybe 2 to 3. I wouldn't use this like if he's pressing right up on the line. It would probably be like he's 1 to 2 yards back. So let's play it again, full speed. Great example of that dive release and getting that DB to flip his hips so he could get back to the outside and keep timing with that QB. So now we're going to talk about something, a very popular release nowadays. It's called a slide release, okay? So a slide release, S-L-I-D-E. Slide release is when pretty much, it's like, we were talking about that foot fire earlier. It's like it's like the hesitation version of that foot fire, but the opposite way, right? So you would use a slide release when the DB is lined up inside shade. So he's inside shade, and a slide release is pretty much when you will just hesitate and shuffle on a 45-degree angle to the outside. So I'm going to play this thing full speed. So Renfrow slides, gives a 1-2 crossover, takes the inside, and then breaks it off on a whip. Now, I like this. This is very creative to use it on a whip route, but I usually like this only on slants, and I usually only like this on like maybe a 5-yard in. Reason for that is because it's a long release. And you can't do this slide release, get the DB to jump, then go run a post or go run a dig. It just takes too long. It's just you're doing too much. You got to make it simple, and you got to keep it simple when I use this slide release. Now, he uses it on this like whip route, right? So the whole reason he's using this slide release is for timing. So I know we can't see the whole play, but you can see at the tail end of this, what's Derek Carr? He's on the run. He's on the move. And I believe this play was play action. I could be wrong, but there's a great example of Stephon Diggs against the Saints. I'm sure you guys have all seen that, where he uses a little slide skip release outside, and Josh Allen is off of play action on that. So it's just, you want to use it, and the reason why I bring that up is because you want to use it on longer developing plays. You don't want to use this slide release on quicker plays. Like if you had to run just a straight up slant and you were going to use this slide release to the outside, if it was like quick, because you got to know the whole play as a receiver. You got to know the play concept. You got to know the timing. If the footwork for the quarterback was just catch and throw, you would not use a slide release. You would use something like a diamond, which is the opposite of a dive, where you would go 3 steps outside, get him to bite, and then slip under. But we use the slide to change tempo, and it accomplishes the same thing. Because he slides to the outside. You see how he uses like a little prep step with the front foot? That's pretty much to push him out. He takes this slow tempo, and then he does this crossover move to sell like he's just doing a slide and go release, which is the next release we're going to get to in a second. So that slide release, great to use when it's a longer developing play. Maybe you're a third read on the play, or it's play action, RPO, whatever it might be. So that's the slide release, fellas. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Renfrow showcasing the tempo of the slide release, the crossover, and the different situations you guys can use that thing. So now, how do you build off of that? And that's called a slide and go release. So a slide and go is something that you could use pretty much on any route. I'm not too picky about the routes that you choose for this. Like in terms of the read, you could use a slide and go and run a fade like Jefferson does right here. You could slide and go and restack and run a dig, run an out route, run a post route, run a comeback. You do all kinds of things with that slide and go. So the slide and go is pretty much a little hesitation, slide to the outside, then take off. So slide and go. There's no slide and a move. There's no move attached to it because on that slide release, you slide, and Renfrow gave that crossover, right? This one, there is no crossover. It's pretty much like, some people call it like a basketball release. I've heard that before. I love that example. I heard that at one of our camps this past weekend. So he comes off, he slides, and just takes off. Now, the whole point of this, you would use this against an inside shade DB because you're trying to make it look the same, right? So maybe a couple times we've slid to the outside like so, and that DB has jumped, and then Jefferson gave him a crossover. He gave him a left-right, and then he was able to run that slant like we were talking about on a longer developing play. Right? So we talked a lot about RPO, talked a lot about play action. That's when you'd want to use the slide release. So now it's man coverage again. I got the same look, but maybe that DB's a little bit more anxious. Maybe when you slide to the outside, he's going to try to be a little bit more disciplined and sit there. So I take off. So I slide. He wants to give me the outside. I could just take off and go right now and beat him in this foot race and go run. I got his feet to slow down with the slide, and I made my release look the same to get him to overthink it. If we get a DB to start thinking and start guessing, we should win every single time. But how we do that is pairing the releases together and pairing my routes together. You could be that you honestly, like if you like to run a lot of RPOs and you're that guy who catches the ball off the RPO, that slide to get that DB to jump is money. And then as soon as he starts thinking about it, when you slide, you force him to make a decision, especially when you slide and it's at a 45-degree angle. A lot of wide receivers will do this and they go too vertical and the DB can just get hands. Or a lot of wide receivers will do this and they'll go too lateral. And so that DB can just sit to the inside, but when you push up vertical, there's too much space between the two of you and he can react. So when you slide at this 45, he's got to make a decision. He could either sit inside and try to be disciplined, or he can move out with you. And if he had to move, if this was just a straight up fade and this DB jumped way outside, we could just put the brakes on, take the inside release. If he wants to sit to the inside, perfect. You want to play the slant? I'm going to go take you on the fade. And then if he wants to jump and keep jumping and take away the fade, I could slide, hit the crossover, run a slant. So that's that slide and go release. Slide and go builds off of that just regular slide. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Jefferson sliding, getting that DB to hesitate inside, and then all we need is a step of separation on that fade. So I want to talk to you guys. Last release is called a wide step release. So wide step is another release where it's exactly how it sounds. So wide steps, W-I-D-E, just wide step. That is the name of this release, and this is probably my favorite release to use because it's a great way to sell vertical, sell a crossing route in just one single step. So pretty much you would always on a wide step with your back foot. So this case, Edelman has his stance switched. You can see the hash mark. You can see that the quarterback's to the inside based on the D lineman right here. So his outside foot is up. So the whole reason for that is usually timing. You could run like a two-step out route. You could run like you could run like a three-step out route for timing. You could do a two-step slant route, but usually wide receivers do that for timing. A lot of people are always like, oh, the inside foot should always be up. There are countless numbers of examples of college and NFL wide receivers who have the outside foot up, and it's for a reason. It is for timing, and it is to throw the DB off so we are not predictable with what I'm trying to do. So because, like, think about it. Whenever you have your stance switch, let's say you run a two-step slant. So let's say maybe you come out and you have your stance switched and you hit him with that wide step and he's over anxious to jump on the slant, then we got him, right? So that's why they do it. They do it to throw off the DB, but also for timing. So the wide step is stepping with the outside foot, the back foot. So I'm going to play this full speed. So it's exactly how it sounds. You step wide to try to threaten the DB inside or outside, depending on your stance. Usually it's outside, but pretty much you use that back foot to step wide and sell. You see in how wide he is stepping. That's the key right there, fellas. You see how he takes that kick step behind. That's what I like to teach on this wide step. You take that kick step, and when you push off of it, you throw. You're throwing your hip with your foot because when you step this wide on a wide step, a lot of wide receivers, what they'll do is they'll leave their hips and their shoulders back here. They'll stay back towards the middle and they'll step super wide. You have no explosion like that. So if you can throw super wide, bring your hip with your foot, that is a textbook wide step release. So anytime that you step with that back foot, that is what's called a wide step release. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Edelman showcasing the wide step release and how we can use that to get that DB to bite on an inside or outside breaking route. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback, and it's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come out to one of our off-season camps, we are traveling out to 5 more states across the country. We're coming out to Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. So check out that very first link in the description below if you want to get some work in with us. I'll see you guys next time.